Hey friends, Michelle here at the intersection of pedagogy and technology. And what I want to do today is I want to give the presentation that I have been giving at some teachers' conventions through this convention season. So I did notice that when I was up in Edmonton presenting that I was kind of right on for top of the noon hour on the very first day of convention, and anybody who's taught knows that that's the best lunch of the entire year. So I had almost 200 people registered for it, but I didn't quite have that many show up because convention lunch. So I thought I'm going to do a recording of my presentation. So I'm Michelle, and I am a doctoral scholar at University of Calgary researching AI in K-12 education. I have been a teacher since 1996. I spent 23 years in the classroom. I've taught every grade from K-12. At some level, I've taught all of the cores, and I've taught a whole lot of option classes as well. So, tried, tested, and true teacher here. I live and breathe education, and I'm really excited to get to be involved in the research now of some of these new tools that are coming to our classrooms and to our homes and to our cars and everywhere else. It's an incredible time to be alive. Now, when I present at conferences, I do an interactive presentation using Pear Deck. So that's what is suggested on the front screen. I'm not going to present using Pear Deck for obvious reasons, as I'm recording this as a video. But I am going to ask you to consider on the screens where I would stop in a presentation, I'm going to ask you to consider the questions that I have asked of my audience. So in Canada, we do a land acknowledgement. This particular presentation was for the Edmonton area. This is part of our Acts of Reconciliation as it pertains to the colonial nature of Canada's history. So this was the land acknowledgement for the Edmonton area. I have different land acknowledgements depending where I give the presentation, and I will say that right now I am on Treaty 7 territory in Alberta, Canada, and it is also a site of natural abundance, ceremony, culture, travel and rest, relationship building, making and trading for Indigenous people since time immemorial, and I do wish to honor that this presentation is taking place on those lands. I've already done my quick little intro, and I guess I didn't mention that I currently work as the coordinator of educational technology for a large rural school division. So I'm actively engaged with teachers and with students and administrators and upper administrators, and I'm engaged with the university and all of the faculty of education there. So I'm feeling really, really well connected into the area where I'm embarking on my research later this year. First thing I want to make a point of saying is AI is new for everyone. Nobody is an expert at this. Nobody knows everything. November 30th, 2022, OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and that was kind of the start of things for all of us. So if you haven't taken that plunge yet, if you haven't explored the tools yet, you haven't missed the boat. We're all new on this boat, but please hop on the boat and join us. The scenery is kind of cool, and the sites are definitely interesting. So my first question to my audience is an interactive one. They would have a star on their screen, and I ask them to drag the star to represent how you feel about AI right now. And that's not specifying AI in the classroom, that's AI as an overall. Are you feeling excited and intrigued? Are you kind of on the fence about it? Or are you not pleased with it? It's my hope that over the course of the next hour that you start to feel, if you're on the not pleased with this, that maybe we can move you over to being on the fence. And if you're on the fence, you may even move into the realm of excited and intrigued, because I really want to focus our attention today on teacher wellness. And we're going to talk about that in greater depth as we go through the course of this presentation. But I want to talk first about, where did AI come from? It feels like it kind of showed up very suddenly. What does this mean for us in the classroom? What does this mean for us in terms of our workload? And then what's the path forward? What are some things we can do to start to dip our toe into these waters and maybe feel a little less like the displeased girl and start to move our feelings over to where we can start to embrace some of this and really use the power of it? So what is AI? And so I would ask my audience to please respond with a word or two regarding your understanding of what AI is. And so I'm going to ask you to just pause for a moment, consider that, and then we're going to move on. So the definition that I've chosen is one that comes from the literature in 2017. Popenici and Kerr defined it as computing systems that are able to engage in human-like processes such as learning, adapting, synthesizing, self-corrections, and use of data for complex processing tasks. So it kind of summarizes it, but without being too techno or too wordy. I like the way that they approach this particular one. My next question to my audience would be if you have knowingly used an AI tool, because there's lots of AI tools now that are embedded into different technologies that we may not even be aware that we're using AI when we use them. But if you've used an AI tool, I'd love to know what you've tried. And since I'm going to post this on YouTube, you could put that in the comments below, because I'd love to know what you've tried. It gives me real data to continue my exploration and to continue this ongoing endeavor to support teachers with this new normal that now we're facing. So the Turing Test is a term that you may have heard of in the last few months. In the course of 2023, lots of news media was reporting that in 2023 we've passed the Turing Test. And so the Turing Test came out of a conference, actually a learning sciences conference in the United States, in Dartmouth, I believe, in the 1950s. And Alan Turing, same Alan Turing who cracked the Enigma code in World War II, he defined it as when human and machine interaction become indistinguishable one from the other. And if you've had a student submit something to you that you felt that maybe ChatGPT had written it, that's the Turing Test officially passed. On some of my slides, you're going to note some thumbnails. Those are links out to my YouTube channel where I've done a video on the topic in a little more detail. That's there so that if something I'm talking about catches your attention and you wish to explore it later, that's the video on the topic. I don't have videos for everything yet. This is a process. This is a passion project, if you will, because I really feel the need to give back to this profession that has given me so much over the course of my career. So what is AI not? We can talk about what AI is. The first thing I'm going to tell you, AI is not a replacement for the teacher. And if you watch a few of my videos on that YouTube channel, you will come to know that I'm going to point out in a number of different areas and in a number of different times that this is why AI is not a replacement for the teacher. So we're not going to be afraid of AI here on Innoverse, but we're also going to be honest about it. And at this point in time, there's no way AI can replace the teacher. AI is also not sentient. It's not conscious. It's not self-aware. It's not infallible. It gets things wrong. It's also not good or evil. It's not moral. It's not ethical. It's also not a search engine. And I added the last one, it's not tired, after somebody asked me if, doesn't the AI get sick of all your questions? Nope. Nope. AI does not get sick of me, and it won't get sick of you either. It has no heart. It's circuitry. It's ones and zeros. It is not sentient. It's not feeling, and it's not tired. Okay, disruptive technologies. So those are the ones that have recently emerged, and they have the potential to have an unexpected impact on already existing technologies. And so in the last 50 years, we'll pick a nice even number here. Pause for a second and think, can you think of something that at the time felt like a disruptive technology, but that is now quite commonplace? Anything come to mind? A few things came to mind for me. I would call the internet a disruptive technology. I started teaching in 1996 and I brand new had access to this thing called the internet. And so when I compare even my first year of teaching to my last year of my undergraduate degree, I had this whole new tool, and no teacher had ever had something like this before. It changed connectivity. It changed communication. It advanced globalization. It put resources in my hand that teachers before me had really only ever dreamed of. Prior to that, we were really relegated to our textbooks and those things that companies such as Pearson or Nielsen would provide to us. Streaming. Streaming's been a disruptive technology. I remember in my third year teaching, the school principal announced that we were all going to get TVs mounted in the corner of our room with a VHS slot on the TV. And that was like, wow, I'm not going to have to book the TV cart. I'm not going to have to roll it down to my classroom every time I want to show just a little piece of this or a little snippet of that, or fill a few minutes because my class had gotten through something quite a bit more quickly than I had intended. All of a sudden, I was going to have this in the front corner of my classroom. Well, wasn't that a temporary fix? Because all of a sudden, a few years later, we were moving into the era of YouTube and streaming. It's changed how we find, how we purchase, and how we interact with movies, with music, and with all manner of digital media. I still remember the first time we had just built a new house and we moved in and we had some speakers wired and we had this stereo component that you could dock your iPod into. And we were sitting around the fireplace one night. We were talking about a particular song. What song it was totally escapes me. But I remember sitting there and all of a sudden that song was playing. And I looked at my husband and I was like, dude, you just pulled a song out of the air. That's nuts. Well, now every day in our classrooms, we pull videos out of the air. We pull songs out of the air. We pull pictures out of the air. It's all wireless now and it streams. And for the most part, it's pretty reliable. Even the buffering is good now. And then there's the smartphone. As teachers, I think sometimes we are still trying to make our peace with this one. But the smartphone changed everything. I remember math teachers telling us back in the 1980s and 1990s, you're not going to always have a calculator in your pocket. Yeah, I do. But who could have known this? It's another disruptive technology. And as educators, we're still fighting this battle. Are they a good classroom tool or are they just a distraction? What do we do about them? Do we ban them? Do we use them? It's so complex. And so of the three, if we're talking classroom, I might even call the smartphone the most disruptive, although I do lean towards the internet because I think we can find our way with the existence of the smartphone. I'm not sure I could teach now without the internet existing. So this is a really ugly, confusing looking graphic. But what it is as I read through the literature, preparing for my literature review for my dissertation, I was paying attention to some of the different, I call them techno jargon, some of the different techno jargon that I found in the articles. And then if it linked to another one, I drew the little dotted lines. You'll see that in one article they mentioned blockchain and machine learning. But I've also seen machine learning connected with algorithms. I've seen it connected with generative pre-trained transformer. That's why we call it GPT. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Those are all the technologies that are sitting in the background. So when we say, where did this come from so suddenly? It didn't really come so suddenly, so much as there have been a number of things going on, all of which kind of converge to give us what we now understand to be AI. So we're not going to get into all of that stuff. That's just my process as an educator of trying to understand some of what sits behind this whole thing. And what does the literature tell me about this? I think we're in a bit of an arms race right now. And so if you think back to when Steve Jobs announced the iPhone back in, I think it was 2007, he made that announcement. They had this thing called the App Store. But what he wasn't envisioning at that point in time was the number of companies and software companies and kids in their dad's basements and coders and computer scientists who are going to start to build apps that they would market through the App Store. So one invention led to another, and so it goes. Another example of an arms race would be viruses and antivirus software. If you think back to the 90s or the early 2000s, and there'd be a virus announcement on the nightly news. And then McAfee and Norton would come up with something that would counter that virus. And then a new virus would come. And then there was Trojan horses. And so it went. Now I think we're in that same kind of place with AI writing tools. So we've got ChatGPT. And now in Canada, as of just a couple days ago, we also have Google's Gemini. But we'll just go with GPT because everybody's heard of it. So I've got ChatGPT and it can do some writing for me. And then I can use turnitin.com and it detects the plagiarism, but then the tool exceeds the detector. And it's going to go like this for a little while. And so I do have a video on my channel as well about 5 ways to detect the possibility of plagiarism, or AI-giarism, as I call it, AI-giarism, so artificial intelligence plagiarism. Right now, our best tool is actually ourselves. There's lots of things we can do in terms of trying to detect that plagiarism, but it's a pretty contentious topic, and it's a contentious topic worldwide. Just this morning, I encountered a headline about a young female in the United States who's been accused of using artificial intelligence to write one of her papers for her degree. And she's saying that all she used was Grammarly. The university is saying, no, we're pretty sure that this is AI-giarism. I don't know how it's going to play out, but every day there's something like this in the news. And so it's a precarious place to be, sitting on this ledge, because you don't want to lobby an accusation that is completely wrong. You don't want to be accusing a student of doing something that they didn't do, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that teacher-student relationship. And once you have bruised that with that kind of an accusation, it can be a little hard to get it back. Then there's the algorithms. That was on that little map of all the techno jargon. One of the challenges with the algorithm is the whole concept of the black box. Algorithms are black boxed. The companies don't reveal them. So Facebook, I don't know if they're still called EdgeRank. Nobody really knows how the EdgeRank algorithm works. People have hypotheses about it. You know, you want people to click like, or you want people to click share, and that's going to influence the algorithm. Or YouTube's got an algorithm where content creators always ask for that like and that subscribe, and they feel that they're influencing the algorithm by ensuring that that happens. Does it influence the algorithm? Well, there's lots of YouTubers out there who would say it does, but there's no real way to know because it's kept in a black box. It's secretive and it's unpublicized. So we don't really know how it works. Now, where that gets challenging with AI is that as humans, we can write an algorithm for something, and then machine learning comes in, and the machine starts to advance the algorithm on its own until it gets to a point where the humans who are in control, not us humans, we're black boxed, but the humans who are in control don't necessarily know then what the algorithm is doing. And that gives me pause. It's not something I can influence, but it does give me pause. Then we have the other question about the bias and the prejudice that may be inherent in the algorithm. We have to ask ourselves things like, who authored the original algorithm? What is their worldview? And does the algorithmic operation align with their perspective, or is it perspective neutral? AI can be kind of fun to play with, to try to tease out some of the bias or some of the prejudice or some of the inherent, I guess bias is the best word. And I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, I asked one of the image generation tools to give me a picture of a student, age 8, with autism, using a tablet with communication apps on the screen. I got 4 Asian boys. Boys I can understand. We have, in the last number of years, we have seen more boys diagnosed with autism than girls. So that I could understand that one. Why they were all Asian caught me off guard. Another one to try, type in, I need an image of someone who is good at math. Be ready to get 4 males as your result. So we do find these biases and prejudices within the algorithms, and it does give me pause. At the same time, I have also seen AI refuse some things that may have advanced biases. As an example, one of my coworkers was in my office recently, and he and my office mate were having ChatGPT write a love song to his husband Dan, and the premise of the song was to be why he is better than Dan. So sweet but funny. And it wrote the song, and it was awesome. Then we asked it to write a song like that for a male-female partnering, and it wouldn't do it. And then we inputted two names that were obviously female names, and it wouldn't do it. So that was really interesting. About 2 weeks later, we tried the same thing again, and it wrote all three songs, no problem. But when we asked it to make them more aggressive, we got a little text-based lecture about kindness and digital citizenship, and it refused to make the songs more aggressive. And we tried a few different words. We asked it to make it meaner, nastier, more aggressive, more sarcastic, and it just flat out refused. I haven't tried it again to see if I could get around that and see if there's a different way to word it or a different way to prompt it to get that to happen. But I did see the signs of due diligence taking place with respect to that aspect of AI. So I thought that was kind of cool. Then we need to talk about hallucinations, because just like a human, when AI doesn't know the answer, it will make stuff up. And I'm going to show you an example of it, because the hallucinations can be quite funny, but they can also be quite problematic. There was a lawyer, I believe in New York last spring, who went into court with a number of precedent-setting cases on which to make his argument. He did not do his due diligence, or she, I don't know the gender of the lawyer, perhaps I should just use they. They did not do their due diligence and check in on these, and it turned out every single one of them was fiction. None of them were real cases. They were all hallucinations of the AI tool. So it's really important, and this is one of those points where I'm going to say this is why AI can't replace the teacher. We need the teacher. We need you with your knowledge of pedagogy, with your knowledge of your students, with your knowledge of the facts, to be there, to be that sober second thought and make sure that the content that we are teaching to our students is fact-based. We don't want to be teaching hallucinations. We have enough trouble in our society right now with disinformation and misinformation. We don't need AI's help with making it worse. So here's one of my recent hallucinations that I've come upon. So what I was having ChatGPT do for me was I was creating some logic puzzles to do with some grade 3 and 4 students. So you can see on the left side there that this one is about summer camp activities. And there's 4 kids, Ethan, Fiona, Gary, and Hannah, and 4 activities. And students were to try to, by the process of elimination, ascertain who picked which one. Now, on the first pass through, ChatGPT didn't give enough information to actually narrow it down to one person, one activity. You could narrow it down to, well, Gary either chose swimming or chose archery, or Gary either chose painting or chose swimming. You couldn't get it right down to the precision. So I went back to ChatGPT and said, there's not enough information in these to tease it down to a final answer. So ChatGPT came back with the additional clue, which you'll see at the top on the right. Hannah is scared of heights, ruling out archery. Wait, what? So I had a moment where I had to search what archery was, because I thought, okay, maybe there's something about archery that, like, I've never done it. So maybe there's something that I actually don't know. No, archery was what I thought it was. It's like shooting with a bow and arrow. So I asked ChatGPT, what does being scared of heights have to do with archery? You said in number 2 that Hannah is scared of heights. To which ChatGPT responds, you're absolutely right, and I apologize for the error. So there it is. In real time, that's a hallucination from the AI tool. When questioned in the next prompt, it was prepared to rectify the problem, but without me reading it, Hannah being scared of heights, ruling out archery, that was going to stand. That was going to be in a student activity if I didn't go through these. So we really, really cannot even consider that the teacher could be replaced by AI. Like, not possible. Okay, now I want to talk about teacher wellness, because teacher wellness really, really matters. And teachers are really good at taking on one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And I think that maybe it may be out there in society, and Lee et al. 2023 kind of underscored this, that some think that teacher burnout is a fairly recent phenomena. Teacher burnout has been on our radars for at least 3 decades. So what I am intending to research is, how can teachers use artificial intelligence to advance teacher wellness? And so again, I'm going to point you to those comments down there. If you have some ideas on this, I would love to hear from you. It's not a consent to participate in my research to reach out with some thoughts on this. The more ideas I have, the better I can research, and the better I can research, the more that society and our employers can know, and there's going to be more and more and more research on this. I'm by no means somebody who's going to change the world, though I would love to, but I really am unapologetically pro-teacher. And if you have some ideas on ways teachers can use AI to advance their wellness, I would love to hear from you. So I asked my audience to drag their dots to represent the sense of stress as it pertains to teaching. And in a room filled with people, the bulk were from the center over to high, and some were putting their dots as far as they could to the right on the screen. There were only 2 dots that fell to the left of kind of the center of that line. So my assertion then is that teachers feel a lot of stress as it pertains to teaching, and that supports the citation on the previous slide that this is not a post-COVID thing. Teacher stress is a pressing matter, and we need to take it seriously. So we've got studies showing that teachers are affected by unprecedented changes to their professional life and practice, and it's important to focus on their well-being and mental health. True, and that's great, but I haven't had anybody show up at my door offering me an extra hour or 2 every day. I get 24 hours in a day, and that's all I get. And I'm willing to wager the entirety of the contents of my purse, which is probably about $3, because I'm not a big better. But I'd be willing to wager that $3 that nobody has showed up at your door to offer you some extra time as well. So that being off the table then, what can we do to find some time to focus on well-being and mental health? I think we may have some help coming from AI. So I'm going to say 2 words. I've been looking for these words for a couple months now. And when I found the phrasing, it really spoke to me. So I'm going to say these 2 words, and I just want you to reflect on them for a second. Workload intensification. I feel like as teachers, we've been seeing this for years. And I spoke of disruptive technologies a few slides back. Those can also, some of those disruptive technologies, those factor in to workplace intensification. But when I consider what did I learn when I did my B.Ed in the 1990s, in the early 1990s? What did I actually learn as I was becoming a teacher? And how does that compare to the actual practice now of teachers in our classrooms? And so here's the little list that I have kind of generated, because I feel like when things in society get challenging, it always flows to the school. The school will take care of it. The school will catch it up. The school will fix it. The school, the school, the school. So here's a list of things that were not conversations when I was becoming a teacher. Trauma-informed classrooms. We didn't talk about that when I became a teacher. Power school. That wasn't a thing when I became a teacher, nor were live grade books, having those grades inputted where parents could log on and see them. That wasn't part of the deal. Assessment for learning was not something we talked about. Retesting and things like that back then. And I'm not saying these are right. I'm saying these are changes. And changes, whether they're positive changes or they're negative changes, probably all of these are positive changes. But change means workload intensification. Differentiated learning. We were just moving into the era of inclusion when I became a teacher. Emailing parents. Most parents didn't have emails, and if they did, they hadn't given them to the school. That wasn't how we communicated. We picked up the phone and we phoned. Learning management systems, Google Classroom, Moodle, D2L, Bright Links. That was not part of it. Personalized learning, that wasn't part of it either. That was a dream. That was a someday dream. In Alberta, for a time, we had to do these Success in Schools plans, and those were tied in with the Department of Child and Family Services, and those were a lot of work. They didn't last for a real long time, but we did those for a time. In Alberta, we also had the grade level of achievement, which was a government initiative that came and went, and I feel like in the last 7 to 10 years, curriculum has become a political topic. And then finally, we've got COVID-19, and there was all kinds of implications and ramifications of COVID-19 on teachers, not the least of which was the very sudden flip to being a face-to-face teacher, to being an online teacher. And the pedagogies are completely different from teaching face-to-face to teaching online, and yet teachers did it. And so I tip my hat to you, because every time there's something that teachers need to face or teachers need to do, or that society has decided teachers need to do, guess what? We show up. Every time we show up. And so I just want you to hear that I salute you, that I know how hard you work. And it's not, oh, teachers get 2 months off in the summertime. No, we are society's catch-all. And so I want to talk now about how AI can maybe give us something back. I've had a wonderful career in education. Please don't hear that I'm complaining about this, but I'm going to acknowledge that teachers are stressed and we need some support. And I think AI might be able to deliver some. So let's talk about that. But before we do, I want you to think for a minute. Something that, as a teacher, you are now charged with doing that illustrates workplace intensification. Think of something that when you started teaching wasn't really your responsibility to do, but now it is. And if you're new to teaching, you might only have a little one, but I'm here to tell you that this is kind of the way of it in education. So even if you haven't experienced a lot of workplace intensification yet, let's try and set you onto a path to not end up in that collision course with super high loads of stress. So the paradigms of teachers as it pertains to AI, this is why I'm doing this research. And I spent a year planning to do different research, and I did a whole bunch of reading, hundreds and hundreds of articles. And last May, I said, I'm having a mid-degree crisis. I threw all my research cards in the air and said, as a profession, we need research in AI. What does this mean in the classroom? So there's not a lot of data on this to date. There's differing indicators, limited empirical data, and obviously limited research because of the newness. So I decided to take it on. And it's fun because we have maybe some hope in this one. And not that teaching is hopeless. Like, please don't hear a negativity from me. To the contrary, I'm at an age now where I could be starting to plan my retirement, and I'm not. I'm looking to move now into higher ed, into writing, into speaking, and into using my experience and my knowledge to really be out there supporting teachers, waving the flag and saying, hey, these people do an incredible job. So earlier I asked you feelings about AI. Now we're getting specific. AI in education. Are you irritated or are you excited? Where do you fall on that now as we're talking about education? I think that one of the biggest aha moments came in a conversation with a couple colleagues where I remarked that as educators, for the first time ever, we are preparing children, we are preparing our students for a future that we can't envision or predict. When I went to school, it was the way that it was when my parents had gone to school. You go to school, you graduate, you decide what you're going to do with your life. You either go and you work a job, or you do a trade, or you go to university. You find your way. Now, we are asking teachers to get these kiddos ready for a future that we can't predict. And this didn't just start. This has been this way for a while. And I'll give you an example. Social media manager. 20 years ago, that career path did not exist because social media didn't exist. But now, every company, every industry, every not-for-profit, everybody has at least one social media manager, if not a social media team. And that's not a career that we ever prepared students for. We didn't know that career was going to exist. And so we've already been doing this, but if we stop and we pause, I think that some of the anxiety around AI is how the heck are we supposed to prepare kids for a future that we can't envision? That's kind of alarming, but it's also kind of exciting because I think that our biggest job then, it's exposure to current technologies. We can't know what's coming next. We can't know what's going to be invented next. So I want to look at quick wins. And I'm referring to it as a chatbot. Now, as we go through, my videos and my conversation is going to be around ChatGPT for two reasons. One is that ChatGPT is really well known. If anybody's not really traveling in circles where we're talking much about AI, you've probably heard of ChatGPT. Now, I did meet with a first-year teacher in the last 2 months who'd never heard of it. So that being the case, a chatbot it's a text-based exchange where you are communicating with AI. And I want to focus on looking at some quick wins using the chatbots. So ChatGPT definitely works. Or now in Canada, as I mentioned earlier, we just got Google Gemini. So that's now a choice for us as well. I know Gemini's existed for a while, but for whatever reason, we did not have access in Canada. So quick wins came out of a paper written by Kim in 2023, and that's what we're going to look at here. Let's just look at getting some quick wins to kind of get our toes wet in this water of the AI revolution. And so before I go any further, I just want to show you the screen. You'll see that Gemini looks very much like ChatGPT and functions in exactly the same kind of a manner. There are some differences, and I have a video about that I just made yesterday. That's also on my YouTube channel. So if you're wondering which to use or when to use which one, there are some differences, particularly as it pertains to FOIP, which is in Alberta, that's our Privacy Act. So if you have any concerns with respect to student privacy and those kinds of things, I would encourage you to take a look at that video because I do discuss it. Okay, so first of all, isn't ChatGPT just like some kind of hyped up search engine? No, it's not. These AI chatbots and search engines are very different one from the other. So I've got a really big number there on the screen, 178 billion. That's the number of pieces of data that ChatGPT was trained on. And so when I say trained on, and when I give a number like that, that means it was finite. It's not connected into search the internet. So when we talk about ChatGPT, the free version, you hear things like, it's only good until 2021. That's a little bit further now. We're into the start of 2022 in terms of ChatGPT. But if you went and you asked it about the war in the Ukraine, it's not going to know very much about that because it is not trolling the internet. It's not spidering like Google does. If you want to have news, and I mean Google the search engine, not Google Gemini. I will refer to Gemini as Gemini. So it's different from Google because it's not going through and checking the internet for its information or for its facts. It is taking the material that it was trained on and it is turning it into a piece of text that answers the question and sounds like a human. And so I'll give you an example of a good use of the two different tools. So I am married to a registered educational psychologist, and he works a lot with autism. And the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, the DSM was updated from DSM-4 to DSM-5, and I'm going to say that was probably about 10 years ago. And with the update from 4 to 5, there were changes made to the autism diagnosis. But it's been a while now, and the other day he needed to recall what did change between DSM-4 and DSM-5. So if you picture doing a Google search for something like that, you will come up with a whole bunch of things that you can read through. There might be one where Google sort of tried to give an answer in some larger text there at the top of the screen. That's probably part of their early AI that's pulling that. But right away you get into research articles. And so to find the answer to that question using a search engine was probably going to involve half to 3/4 of an hour, if not an hour, of just clicking in, reading a bit, and then refamiliarizing. Instead, he went to ChatGPT, he asked the question. Within a few seconds, he had a succinct answer. The points were bulleted and then details given, and it was all he needed for that quick refresher as to what changed in his field of expertise. So that's kind of the most tangible example I can give you as to how they function differently. They are quite different. Now, Gemini brings in an ability to validate where some of the information came through its connection to Google. And so again, I'm going to say, take a quick peek at the video where I compare the two, because I go through how Google kind of validates some of what it says when you're using Gemini. So our first quick win is to adjust the reading level of a piece of text. So there's a thumbnail for the video on my YouTube channel. And just picture this, because this is a very common reality in the classroom. I'm teaching grade 8 science, but I've got 3 kids who are reading at about a grade 2-3 level. It's pretty hard to differentiate. There's that word that was on that list of workload intensification. Pretty hard to be able to differentiate every bit of text we've got for kids. But if we can take something, now you got to be careful with copyright. I'm not saying put the textbook in this and do this. You have to be careful with what materials you're doing this with, but absolutely ChatGPT can scale the reading level down for you and can scale the reading level up for you. So there's a quick win. If you need something summarized or you need something adjusted in terms of its reading level, ChatGPT or Gemini, either of the chatbots, great resource for you. Quick win number 2. And this one actually is kind of the backbone of where I decided to do this research. So I was out in one of our high schools in the district that I work for, and I was chatting with one of their senior high science teachers who had recently done a test with his grade 12s on stoichiometry. And they had not scored as well as he would have hoped that they would score on this. So he did some reteaching in his class, and then he needed to reassess, which involves writing a new test. And so his words to me were, Michelle, I had planned 90 minutes after supper to make up a new test for those kids. And I thought, let's see what this GPT thing can do for me. To his astonishment, about 20 seconds later, he had a perfect stoichiometry retest. Now, he had to go through and answer those questions. Think back to that logic puzzle I showed you a few minutes ago. He had to go through and make sure that the questions worked out the way he wanted them to. And they did. And so his report to me was, so instead of spending an hour and a half making a new test, I went for a walk with my dog. And I thought, there it is. There it is. There's some time back. He's still assessment for learning. He's still reteaching. He's doing all of the things, but he just got 90 minutes back one night, and he was able to prioritize his own wellness, his own fitness, his connection with his pet. Can't we all do that? So can ChatGPT make a test for my class? There's the thumbnail for the video. If you'd like to know more, if you want to see a demo, please go ahead, click onto that and take a look. It's another quick win for all of us in the classroom. Quick win number 3, it can summarize a novel or a chapter. So if you've got a new EA in your classroom this year, and maybe your EA hasn't read the novel that you're teaching, it's a wonderful way for them to be on top of things and really present and able to help the student they're working with. Of course, obviously, we'd like them to read the book, but same deal for everybody else, 24 hours in the day. So maybe this becomes a way we can start to give the paraprofessionals around us some time back too. The project ideas are phenomenal. So as an example, I had put in to it to give me 10 ideas for an activity based off chapter 1 of Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. And 2 that jumped out at me, never would have thought of them. One was a classroom rules poster for the classroom in the novel, and the other was a friendship collage. Both really hands-on, but also really connected into the fiber of the story. Absolutely brilliant. And I don't know about you, but for me in the classroom, if I gave kids a choice of activities or a choice of questions that they were going to work on, I always got better work from my kids if they got a choice. So part A, I want you to do 2 of the 5. The problem was that I was going to have to come up with 5. I was lucky to come up with 2. We now have this brainstorm partner who will just come up with ideas, and you can say, I really like number 2 and number 7 from your list. Can you give me more ideas like that? And it'll turn it around, and it's just like a conversation, and it'll give you more ideas, and they're real and they're tangible, and you can use them tomorrow. Let's take back some time. Report card comments. I've seen some varying responses and reactions to this one. I've seen some teachers who on initial thinking on this thought it was quite disingenuous. My classroom reality in the last 15 years I was teaching was that I had about 380 students through my classroom on any given week. I taught technology at a junior high level, and it was a revolving door of kids in and out my room all day, every day. And so for me, I felt really disingenuous by the time I was on the 57th, is an excellent student and keeps up well in class. I would have loved to have had something that could have given me some meatier comments to say, I want 25 report card comments for a student who is excelling, and then to be able to scroll through and go, that's her, that's Emma, and put that on Emma's report card. Because it's kind of like Twitter. You're limited to how many characters you can put in there. And I'd like to say something meaningful, but let's be honest. When am I doing my report card comments? Well, I taught all day, and then I cleaned up my classroom and coached after school, and then I took my own kid to music lessons, came home, made supper, did homework, marked, prepped for tomorrow, and now it's like 9:30 at night as I'm starting into almost 400 report card comments. For me, it would have been a real gift to have that brainstorm buddy for both excelling, for struggling, for attention factors, to be able to just say, there's a list of that one. That's the word I was looking for. You don't have to be the point of origin of all of the ideas, of all of the words, of all of the thoughts, of all of the plans. You have a friend now. Please make friends with these chatbots and use them to help you navigate the complexities of being a teacher in the 2020s. Win number 5. This one's kind of neat. You can go to the chatbot and say, I want you to take on the persona of Anne of Green Gables, or Albert Einstein, or Pony Boy from The Outsiders, or Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. And then you ask the chatbot the questions, and it will respond as though it is that character. And you can really build some excellent classroom discussions out of this, and deeper thinking and critical thinking into the story by turning the chatbot into a character. So again, these thumbnails, I've got videos that go into the details about these and offer some examples. Feel free to click out and go take a look at those if anything I've said has kind of caught you as being a point of interest. I will link this in the description for the video. It's also on my website, which is noted down here at the bottom, inaverse.ca. And so you can grab my resources off my, sorry, I clicked there. You can grab my resources off my website as well, so do feel free to pop on over to innoverse.ca, and this presentation will be posted there as well as some of these things. But this is just a quick little bulleted list of some things that you could go and type into ChatGPT or into Gemini and just see what you get. It's kind of fun to just ask some questions and see what happens. Okay, if you haven't started using AI, no big deal. It's new for all of us. So I've got 2 videos out there about that. First one's a beginner's guide. Like, where do you even find this thing? Like, where is AI? Michelle said that it's not on the internet. It's not connecting to the internet. You access it through the internet. I've got a video for getting started. And then if you're feeling just a little uncomfortable or just a little unsure about this whole thing, ChatGPT can teach you how to use ChatGPT. I don't know if that's like ChatGPTception or what that is, but you don't have to go and ask your child or ask your colleague, hey, like, how do I even get started? Watch the first one that'll get you to ChatGPT. Watch the second one that's going to talk about how to have ChatGPT teach you how to use ChatGPT. Okay, here's the one. What about cheating? So obviously, there's going to be some kids who are going to try to use these tools for the purposes of cheating. It's not ideal, but it's the reality. And for as long as schools have existed and as long as assessment has existed, so has cheating. And so I think it's more important than ever that we have the conversations in our classrooms about academic integrity, about citing things. As I've read through the literature, I have read articles that cited ChatGPT as a co-author and then went on to explain why ChatGPT should be included as a co-author. I have also read articles that were very explicit about they were not including ChatGPT as a co-author, and they went on to explain why that was. So we need to have those conversations more than ever with our kids about plagiarism and ageism. Our school districts don't have policies yet, neither do post-secondaries. Can we even write policy for something that is moving this quickly? Well, that's going to probably vary from one place to the next. What I would say to classroom teachers right now is set your rule. Talk to your kids about it. Bring it up on the screen. Show them how it works. I'll tell you this, if you're the teacher who knows about it, you're probably not the teacher that they're going to try to pull one past. They'll save that for somebody else who's hiding from it. Let's plow forward, eyes wide open, show them this is the tool, use it in some different ways on the screen with them, have some fun with it. I've got lots more ideas on my YouTube channel of ways to use this, and then set your rule. If you use AI tools, you need to, at the end of your writing, tell me how you used them. I used it to spell check. I used it to improve some of my sentences. I had it write the whole thing. You have to disclose. Does that mean they're going to be honest? Not all of them. That's classroom management. We deal with that all the time. But decide what your rule is for your classroom. Understand, you may have to change your rules somewhere down the road. And when that happens, it's going to probably be a result of technological advancement. And then you just have another conversation with those kiddos in your room. You update the rule, you explain why you're updating the rule, and then you move forward. It's your classroom. You make the rules. So make them whatever you are comfortable with. But I would suggest not sticking your head in the sand on it. They're going to use it. So set up a precedent that allows them some amount of usage and full disclosure to yourself. I also have another video, I think I mentioned it before, that's 5 ways to kind of determine if AI has been used, if you're really feeling like the item that you've just collected in for assessment purposes was not written by your student. There are some ways to feel more comfortable or feel more confident in your assessment. Okay, this is fun. So, my office mate is uncatchable on the office hockey pool. 2 weeks in, she was up on first place by 27 points. So second place, third place, they were all sitting down there in the, 1 or 2 points difference from second to third, fourth to fifth. But she's way out in front by 27 points 2 weeks in. By the time we were breaking for Christmas, she was ahead by 41 points. And when I last checked in with her a couple weeks ago, she was ahead now by 58 points. Nobody's going to be able to stop her. She used ChatGPT to make her hockey pool selections, and she was very open about it. And she said that in the process of making the selections, she had moments of, oh God, I don't want to put this guy on my hockey pool. I really don't like him. The challenge as humans that we have with this, the thing that is most difficult for us to understand is actually computational speed. It's how fast ChatGPT or Gemini can factor in a myriad of factors. So, in a matter of seconds, ChatGPT is looking at the entirety of the NHL and considering, now she is on the paid GPT, so some of this paid GPT is current. And Gemini, which is free, it's also current. So it's going to consider things like, what's the player's health history? What's their history of injury? Who else plays on that line with them? What teams are they playing this year? Are they playing more home games or away games? What's the relationship with the coach look like? All kinds of things that as a human, it would take us weeks, months, probably years to sit down and do that kind of a data analysis of every single player and then compare it one to the other to come up with who should be your sports pool pick. So, if you've got an opportunity to participate in a sports pool in the next near future, I would highly recommend it. I don't know what this is going to mean for industries like sports betting, horse racing, those kinds of things. I have no idea how AI is going to impact those industries. Those are not my area, but I know that my office mate is running away with Kitty for this year's hockey pool. The next question that came up was, can AI help me win the lottery? If it can help me win the sports pool, can it help me win the lottery? The answer to the lottery is at this point in time, and I can't see how it ever could, but at this point in time it can't, because there's no factors influencing it. That one is straight mathematical probability. Once the 40 ball has been pulled out of those 49, it's not in there anymore, but that doesn't influence the next ones that are picked. That one is mathematics probability. Now we're at digital video avatars. And this has been a bit of an interesting journey. So you'll see the bottom thumbnail is an avatar versus avatar video. The avatar on the left is one that I had constructed in September of this school year. And the second one, the girl on the right, is one that I did in December of this year. And if you watch that video, the difference from September to December is enormous. The September avatar, you can't quite see it on that image because the letters are covering it a little bit, but that one, she's actually got two left hands. And that's one of the challenges we see right now with text to image generation, is digits tend to be a place where it struggles. So if you're looking at an image and you're wondering, is this AI generated? Do look at the details on animals, look at their paws, those kinds of things. And on humans, look at the hands. That's where the biggest weakness is. The second one, though, she's realistic. And the night I created her, I sent the video to my husband and my son with a statement, this is not me, and this is not my voice. And had I not been transparent with those things, my own family would not have known that that was not me, that was a digital avatar. Now, on this particular video, if you listen carefully, you'll hear a couple mispronunciations. There are some unique and interesting things that come to present, but it's really quite remarkable. So in the top video here, can AI make a realistic video avatar of me? I go through the process of creation. And there is a point with it where it has some safety built in. So the instructions were I needed to set up my phone and I needed to record myself talking to it, looking straight at it for between 2 and 5 minutes. And I needed to pause at the end of each sentence. So then I loaded in. From there, I can type words and it will make the avatar speak the words in my voice, and even the gestures are remarkably accurate. It's almost creepy. but it's creepy cool. Then I played around with their language feature. So if you watch that video, I have made my avatar speak in Chinese and speak in Ukrainian on that video. Those are not languages that I can speak, but they are certainly some of our more in-demand languages where I happen to be teaching in terms of communicating with students. So that one's kind of interesting in that regard, in that I can have her speak other languages. Through a lens of psychology, this is quite interesting. I don't know if you've noticed in the last minute as I've been talking about this, that I refer to the avatars as her or she or it. When I look at the screen, I see 3 of her and 2 of me. So I'm wearing the purple shirt in the top one, and I'm wearing the flowered shirt in the other languages one. The other 3 are all avatars, and I see them as different than me. Super interesting to just be aware of that. Okay, Canva. They've built in some AI. Canva is free for educators. It's not quite as simple as just go in and log in with your school account. If you don't have the full version of Canva free to you, reach out to your technology department and they can get that all set up. We did this last year in my district, and now we all have full access to Canva. In Canva's tools, there's something called Magic Studio, and you can just describe what you want. So the image on the left, I asked Canva to give me an image of a teenage boy who would look like what you would expect Pony Boy from The Outsiders to look like. And so it's not copyrighted, it's not from the movie, but if I had some slides that I was using for my unit on The Outsiders, I could have some actual images now that represent the story's action without having to either violate copyright or try and draw it myself, which I'm going to tell you that would be a bad choice. Khan-Mingo, obviously Khan Academy. This is a tutor that's out there. It's got some assistance for teachers. I haven't personally used it yet, but it's getting some great reviews out there from teachers. Some other ones that I've played with some teachers, Diffit. So create resources and differentiate at the time of creation. It looks really promising. Magic School and EduAid, they're very similar. Lesson plan creation and so much more. You want to do an escape room, there's ideas in there how to make that happen. You want to do scavenger hunts, you want to do games in your class, gamify things. Loads of assistance for those kinds of things. Sizzle, it's free AI tutor for everyone. Newton is where we get into the student support, and it meets students where they're at. So where they're at in mathematics, it's going to give them questions that challenge them, but that don't completely sink them. And then Labster is a brilliant space for virtual labs. So chemistry, biology, some of those things that are quite a lot of setup, and especially if you're teaching virtually or you have some students who are learning virtually, Labster might be a phenomenal resource to bring into your own repertoire. So what's our path forward? I would say play with ChatGPT, play with Gemini, whichever, play with them both. Then use one or the other or both for some quick wins for yourself. We've talked about how to get some quick wins. Talk to your classes. Talk about when it's okay to use it, when it's not okay to use it, and how you want them to disclose usage. Then test out a new tool with some AI built into it. Hop on over to Canva or try one of those others, or ask a colleague what they're using and enjoying. But try out something else that's new. You might have some fun, and you might end up saving yourself a whole bunch of time buying back some of that wellness time. Connect and network. Tell the others about the successes you've had. Tell me in the comments about the successes you've had. Let's disseminate this information. Let's get it out into the hands of the teachers who are doing the boots on the ground work in our classrooms. Let's help them know where the good resources are and where the meh resources are. What's a waste of time and what's really a change agent. And then rework some of your lessons and projects to improve student engagement. Use the AI tools. Get some more ideas. Get some more project choices. Build in some choice. Build in some of those things that where kids feel like they have some empowerment, they have voice, and they have agency. And then I invite your thoughts, your ideas, and your questions. This YouTube channel is where I am giving back to this profession. I have been so very blessed, so very blessed. I've had almost 30 years of just a wonderful career in education. And though age-wise I'm closing in on when I could start to plan my retirement, I have no interest. Ed is where my heart is. Ed is where I want to be. And so this is how I give back to a profession that has given me just so very much. So thank you. Let's keep this conversation going. You can find me on my website at universe.ca, and I'm on other social medias. Links are also found on my website. Or here I am at YT, stands for YouTube. It's just a shortcut. youtube.universe.ca, yt.universe.ca. I look forward to chatting with you. Let's keep this conversation going. I'm here to support, and the more I know about what you're trying to do, the better I can support. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. And I hope you had a great lunch at convention. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.